thank you for joining me once again. Where's Stephanie? Still at it. This video is called, Is it safe to do the carnivore diet long term? Question mark, question mark, question mark, question mark, question mark. Well, let's see. Off you go, Steph. Tell us, I guess, why you think it isn't, and we'll correct you where you're wrong, and I suspect that'll be in quite a few places.
Welcome to my channel. Hello.
Hello, Steph.
Yeah, I talk about carnivore, but I'm going to branch off more into just normal things as well. But
are you? When's that going to start, and what's normal?
Let's get into it. Is it safe to do the carnivore diet for a very, very long time?
Yes, it is, unequivocally. We've shown that many, many times, including individuals who have been doing that, in one case that we know of for 40 years, and another one for 65 years, 67 years, I think it is actually. Yes, there are many, many others who are in their first and second decades, or late in their first decade, early in their second decade of being on a carnivore diet. It's pretty safe long-term, Steph, yes, absolutely. That shortens your video quite a bit, doesn't it? Well, it would do if you'd actually bothered to check that out before you made your video, instead of whatever it is that you're going to say. Let's hear it.
Long term. Yes and no.
Just yes.
More no than yes.
Wrong. False. Completely false.
Okay. The problem is that people who are doing a carnivore diet for the long term are often losing digestive enzymes.
No. False. Where did you get that from? What is the source? Okay, so it's just another pseudo fact that you've pulled out of your asshole, is it, Steph? Good.
Right. Their
wrong.
Digestive enzymes are wavering.
No, they're not, Stephanie. No.
But also their histamine enzymes, like diamine oxidase and N-methyltransferase, tend to go. These are things.
No. Again, where's your source? Okay.
It'll take swelling down. So in the beginning, people feel amazing on carnivore and they lose like 40 pounds. All of a sudden, they can't lose weight anymore.
Well, maybe there's no more weight to lose in a lot of cases.
And they start to develop issues like diarrhea, constipation.
Oh, right. So you're talking about people that probably hammer over and change their diet overnight, and then 6 or 8 months down the track, suddenly it all turns to custard. Well, that's no surprise. I've spoken about that many times on my channel. That's nothing to do with carnivore in particular. Any person who changes their diet remarkably, hugely overnight from one thing to any other thing can expect to have a problem at some point, either immediately or up to 6 to 8 months later. Actually, it generally tends to occur. That's nothing to do with carnivore, Stephanie. Nothing at all.
Loose stool, pain, bloat when they eat meat, or
anything else.
Even histamine responses. Okay. Now, when it comes to who should do a carnivore diet?
Well, that's everybody, because it's species appropriate and species specific for Homo sapiens sapiens, a species of which we are all a member, Stephanie. So everyone should do that.
Be people who've got severe histamine. A lot of you guys don't know what histamine is. It's just...
Including Stephanie, by the sounds of it.
Anything that makes you feel bad.
Oh, right. Okay, good. Anything that makes you feel bad is histamine. Okay, good. Seriously, Stephanie. Seriously.
But more particularly, it has things to do with allergies. But it can manifest in a headache, in nausea. It can manifest in the standard itching and mucus. You can have stomach aches.
So people can have a histamine intolerance problem, or an overproduction of histamine in response to either food they're eating or environmental factors, or both. Yes, we understand that, Stephanie. That's not peculiar or particular to the carnivore diet. That is something that occurs to people as a function of modern lifestyles. In actual fact, the carnivore diet is the least inflammatory, least histaminergic diet that we know about. Okay? What's next?
Stool, the constipation, you can develop weird aches and pains that you normally don't have.
All of these things could be symptoms of many different things, may not be connected in any way to histamine.
Have like joint pain or just like literally any type of like shoulder pain or joint pain or.
Oh my word, I'm not sure I'm going to get through this, boys and girls. It's like herding cats. It's like pulling fucking teeth slowly. It's really, really bad. And it's got so much worse in the last few years, listening to Stephanie's nonsense. Wow.
Or muscle pain or aches or headaches, feeling extremely tired. These things, you can't sleep. You have no energy, feeling
the level of waffle is just beyond belief.
Like you're hypoglycemic or you have no strength. And that's why a lot of people, or you can't sleep, I said, a lot of people don't realize that once their body has this growing inflammatory response, sometimes it happens within 20 minutes, often within 2 hours. Sometimes it can go to the next day and even 48 hours later before you react. So a lot of people...
Sometimes months and months before you get a meaningful inflammatory response to any given stimulus. What is your point?
People don't equate what they've eaten to this inflammatory response that happened a day or two later. So they're like, I don't understand. Okay. How does this happen? How do we develop this histamine situation?
Well, given that you clearly are not remotely expert in talking about histamine, talking to people publicly in a so-called instructional fashion about the etiology of histaminergic problems should be quite a lot for our comedy mill. This should be hilarious.
I want to talk about leaky gut in particular.
Sure. What kind of diet is most associated with leaky gut, by the way? Oh, yeah.
This plays a huge role.
Yes. And what kind of diet is associated with leaky gut again? Not the one that is based around or is indeed made entirely from the flesh and fat of animals. Is it, Stephanie? No, it's the other one. That's the one that's associated with the leaky gut. So, again, an irrelevancy.
And who should do carnivore?
Everybody still.
Or not do carnivore, especially for the length, like how long? But let's go into leaky gut.
Let's.
So here you go. Here we have a image that is a common image you'll see when you
do. It's a schema. It's an idea. It's a construct. It doesn't represent accurately, remotely, actually, what genuinely goes on with leaky gut. It's a very simplified, very parsimonious, very childlike representation.
Do Google search of...
Well, there you go. See, if you're going to base your information on Google searching, I think we're done here, aren't we, Steph? Because that's not how we learn good material. That's not how we learn anything useful at all. That's just rubbish. Google search.
Of a leaking gut. So I'm going to try to make this bigger.
How big do you need it?
Okay. When your gut is good, so your gut wall should be tight.
There's good gap junctions between adjacent epithelial cells in your gut. Absolutely.
This, right? And those little funny finger-like projections at the top of this animation, this is called microvilli, and they help to filter, break down the food in smaller bits. And down in that red area, that's where...
Not really, Stephanie. Their purpose is to increase the surface area of the lumen-facing side of the epithelial cells. You don't even know what they do. This is incredible.
That's your bloodstream. So things are absorbed into your bloodstream in very tiny amounts.
Usually through the other side of the epithelial cells. Things pass through the epithelial cells, not between them in general. When you have a healthy gut situation, yes.
Through the microvilli.
No, not really. It's through the cell. The microvilli is just an increase in the surface area on that side of the cell for obvious reasons, still.
But the problem is that when you damage your body...
Yeah, and how do you do that? How do you get leaky gut again, Stephanie? Oh, yes. By eating a diet that is inflammatory, toxic, physically damaging to the epithelial cells. Oh, yes. A diet containing a significant amount of plant material. That's how you cause leaky gut. Not by eating meat and fat. So what's this got to do with whether it's safe to eat the carnivore diet long term? Absolutely fucking nothing, Stephanie.
Now there's big, huge, open gaps.
No, not really big or huge or open. The gap junctions are less effective, and things can slide between the cells.
Between these microvilli?
No, between the epithelial cells. The microvilli have nothing really to do with it, still.
And now the bloodstream below will start to have big...
You just like saying microvilli because it's a new word you've learned this week, Stephanie, in your Google searching, and it's actually microvilli, not villi. All right? So please, you're not sounding intelligent.
Particles of food that can enter the bloodstream that we're not able...
Not just food, it's all sorts of agents that can start to slip between the cells when the gap junctions are no longer effective.
To enter before, your body doesn't understand the holes, and so it thinks it's an invader, and your body starts shooting.
It's because it is an invading thing.
At itself.
No, it's not shooting at itself so much, Stephanie. It's shooting at the invader that it's actually very rarely occurring.
And that's the problem. And so you see this scale.
Right, so you get an inflammatory response to the non-native proteins that are making their way through the gap junctions and being exposed to the bloodstream directly. Okay. And again, how is leaky gut caused? Oh, yes, that's right, by eating plants.
Under the image, and that's showing you like good and bad bacteria.
There's no such thing as good and bad bacteria, for goodness sake. There is just bacteria. The balance and speciation of bacteria that occur inside your colon is there are all sorts of different sorts of microbiota that are healthy, non-problematic, peaceable arrangements. There are no inherently good or bad bacteria, for goodness sake. Just nonsense, Stephanie.
When you develop big holes in the gut walls, let me go back to here.
We can see them, for goodness sake. We're not stupid. And they're not really a very good representation of the actual reality of the situation. As I said, very parsimonious and childlike.
Okay, so when you develop these massive holes, right?
No, still.
It really looks like this. It should be tight, right? The little hairs.
No, it's got nothing to do with the hairs. Nothing at all, Stephanie.
And when you develop these massive holes...
No, still.
Now the bad bacteria starts...
No, still.
...to overgrow. And then there's this imbalance between... So good and bad bacteria should do this.
No, still.
All day long, all week long, all month long, your whole life long. Our hunter-gatherers never had this issue.
I wonder why.
Because they didn't have pharmaceuticals. They didn't have...
Right, so what's that got to do in a purple fuck with the carnivore diet, Stephanie? Still. Absolutely fucking nothing. For goodness sake.
Antibiotics, like ibuprofen, birth control pills, like SSRIs, you name it, they destroy your gut.
So is this video about the carnivore diet or is it about the evils of pharmaceuticals? Which?
Yes. All these medications, chemical medications, destroy the gut wall.
Yes, they can, absolutely.
Now, what also destroys the gut wall, makes it open, alcohol.
Yes.
smoking
Yes.
cigarettes, not being vaginally birthed.
Yes, perhaps.
I know. Not
No,
being
you don't know dick about fuck, Stephanie. Don't use the word I know. You don't.
breastfed.
Sure, potentially.
These are all starters, indications. People who were on soy formula when they were kids.
Right, so what has this got to do with the carnivore diet and its safety, Stephanie? At all? Anything? No. God's sake.
Some weird formula or getting box of cookies. That's a code word. These are the things that really weaken your gut wall.
Yes.
And from birth.
Potentially.
Okay.
Yes, potentially.
Some people even like what your mother ate, the quality of your father's sperm is going to dictate what's going on with your intestinal wall. So
to some degree, perhaps.
The small intestine is the snake like this, and the large intestine comes from the left, goes around like this, and then out, and then you poop. The problem is that when you guys have these holes and like big particles of food, and now the imbalance of bacteria, often you either develop loose stool or all of a sudden you become constipated.
Sure, either of those can occur.
Yes. And when you're constipated, the tube...
Jesus, it's not that big, love.
It starts to impact, right? Often with a lot of people, when you have the bacteria will paralyze the squeezing of that large intestine to poop that stuff out.
Yeah, sure.
And then it stretches. And when
but not that size.
It stretches, it really loses the ability to contract, right?
No, in fact, that's false. The loss of the ability to contract is a motility issue. It's nothing to do with stretch. If anything, the stretch reflex will cause tissues that are muscular, i.e. the muscles surrounding that particular zone in the colon, to be more likely to contract, not less. Okay?
So then stool, fecal matter, can be reabsorbed back into the bloodstream, and then you have this compacting reaction.
Yes, very bad thing.
So,
but what's that got to do with the carnivore diet? Still, absolutely fucking nothing.
If you miss one day of pooping, just one, you're constipated.
False. Rubbish. Absolute errant fucking nonsense.
If your stool is hard, but you can poop every day, you're constipated.
No, constipation is an inability to pass stool. It has nothing to do with the consistency of the stool being passed. If you have no stool to pass on any given day and you don't pass any stool because there is none to pass, you are not constipated. If you pass hard stool, you are not constipated, Stephanie.
People think, well, I don't feel that I'm constipated. You don't have to feel constipated to be constipated.
No, you have to actually be constipated. And you don't know what that is, Stephanie, at all, clearly.
Once people have a complete...
perhaps you yourself are, because you're definitely full of shit.
Impaction of their stool, when it really becomes compacted, they start to have pain typically on their left side. And that's when you know where you're in trouble, because you can tear open.
There's nothing else that could cause pain on the left-hand side of your abdomen other than compacted feces? Is there not? There are hundreds of things that could cause that pain, Stephanie. You are not qualified to tell people how to diagnose any form of dysfunction, frankly. All right? Knock it off.
And that, your intestine and leak into your system. Rupture. So people are developing... so I think I'm going to do this. I was going to make this video about
oh, God. You see what I'm dealing with here, boys and girls? You see why I have no hair? It's because I've pulled it all out by the root.
Is it safe to do carnivore? But I also want to talk about leaky gut.
Well, make your mind up. What's the video about? Because they're not connected. And we've still heard nothing about the carnivore diet whatsoever.
in conjunction. The people who should do carnivore definitely should have like histamine intolerance, because once those holes open up and you have an imbalance of bacteria, your body...
Do that thing again, though, with the arms, because we haven't seen that 100 times yet, which shows us absolutely nothing about anything.
It goes into this super gnarly inflammatory response.
Super gnarly, that's a medical term, is it, Stephanie?
But if the enzymes that gobble up all of the inflammation after you're done...
Oh, my God. Seriously? Enzymes that gobble up inflammation, is it? Wow. Have you been to reality ever, Stephanie? Have you ever visited over here? It's great. You certainly haven't in the last couple of years. Goodness gracious me.
Body's starting to heal, and those enzymes that take down the histamine aren't being produced enough. Histamine just hangs around. And then you start to notice like broken blood vessels around the nose, cracks around the nails, the like tongue, your skin.
The like tongue
is off. You get like bags, and your skin starts getting crepey, or you have like acne or rashes or blotches.
Right, so all things that could be signs of many, many different sorts of dysfunction that may have nothing whatever to do with histamine. Still.
Yeah, it's a thing.
It's not a thing, Stephanie. It's a load of nonsense that you're making up for views.
When leaky gut goes and converts into histamine intolerance, because you have this like triad effect of the holes are open, the body attacks itself.
No, not itself. In this case, it's attacking actual and non-native proteins and bacteria and things that are leaking through from the lumen of the gut and becoming exposed to the blood directly.
The peristalsis becomes paralyzed.
It can do.
The tube begins to become...
You've said all of this. It was stupid and irrelevant the first time and nothing to do with the carnivore diet. Remember the title of your video? Is it safe to do the carnivore diet long term? Question mark, question mark, question mark, question mark, question mark. The answer is still yes, and you've still said nothing whatsoever about the carnivore diet, and you're nearly halfway through. Nothing at all about the carnivore diet. Not a word.
Unable to contract, you reabsorb the toxins.
You've said all of this.
And it just keeps going in this bad cycle.
You've said all of this.
So here's the thing. If you're doing carnivore, and at first you do great, but then you're not doing great because now you've started to develop constipation.
Not necessarily. A lot of people reduce vastly the volume and regularity of their bowel motions precisely because there is no waste to speak of. Every second or third day is not out of the normal range for people on a carnivore diet. And the volume is small, easily passed, with no stressing and straining whatsoever. The bowel function is the best that's ever been. The inflammation level is the best it's ever been in these people. They're doing great. When it goes wrong, Stephanie, is because usually people change their diet too suddenly. Nothing to do with the carnivore diet still.
You have to jump out.
No. False. That's the worst thing you could do if you get into a situation of dysbiosis. The absolute worst thing you could do is jump out. You buffoon.
You can't do a high protein,
false
carnivore diet if you can't poop.
Oh my God. Seriously? Is it possible to be this ignorant? Apparently it is.
When you hear people say that if you're not eliminating, which is pooping enough, that your body's using it, this is the most absurd lie.
No, it isn't, Stephanie. No, it isn't at all. The thing that's absurd here is you imagining yourself remotely competent to speak about human health. It is clear and patent that you are totally out of your depth. You have completely lost the plot. Your hubris has got the better of you. I suspect that there's early signs of dementia going on with you. It's written all over you, and it's written all over your speech pattern, your behaviour patterns, and how your material has changed in the last couple of years. I'm very worried. I think you need to get assessed. I think you need to get some professional help. Seriously. You have lost your shit entirely. It's really worrying.
And made up junk science you'll ever hear.
Oh, right. Tell me about science, Stephanie. Please tell me all about science. I'm confused, obviously, about science. Never heard of it myself. Wow. Let's all wait for Stephanie to tell us about some science. Oh, this is more entertaining than watching Stephanie's film, isn't it? I think we'll just do this for the next hour. Oh, all right, let's carry on.
Your body extracts what it needs.
Correct. And when there's not much left, there's not much left, because it's extracted pretty much all of what it's consumed because it needed it all. Good.
Out of all food. And
no, it doesn't get what it needs out of all so-called food. Your body doesn't get what it needs from plants. Okay?
what it cannot extract and use, you poop it out.
That's right. It's waste. So if you can extract and use almost the entirety of what there is that you've consumed, then there isn't any waste, there isn't any poop to speak of. How is that junk science? It's pretty fucking basic common sense, actually.
So there's no such, it can't use it all.
That's right. That's why there is still some poop.
There are byproducts.
Plus, you need to pass out other things that your body is producing through other metabolic interactions and things, some of which ends up in your stool. Great.
Products of protein that must leave the body.
Yes.
You're not going to use it all.
That's right. Correct. That's why there's still some poop. Great.
So people don't understand.
Yes, that's right, Stephanie. Clearly, a lot of people that follow you don't understand, and you're not going to help. You're only going to make it worse.
Thing about purines and uric acid, and
you don't understand anything about that stuff either, Stephanie. They're just words that you know that you've learned, and now you're just saying the words. You don't actually understand anything underpinning any of it. You've made that very, very clear repeatedly over the last few months, year or so even.
And protein waste products, and there's just whatever the body doesn't need.
That's right, yes.
It's going to get rid of.
Yes. When there's enough of it to get rid of. When there's enough feces there to be passed. When it's reabsorbed everything out of that feces that it wants to. Most of the fluid, for example. Any final bits of nutrient that the colon want to pick out of it. Leaving behind truly what is absolutely waste. Feces.
The reason why people are constipated...
They are not, Stephanie, at large. Most people on the carnivore diet are not constipated.
And it's because their electrolytes are off.
No. That's one thing that can cause constipation, but most people on a carnivore diet do not have an electrolyte imbalance issue.
And they often have an imbalance.
Oh, do the thing with the arms again, though. That's important.
It's a bacteria because they're losing a lot of this diamine oxidase, DAO, which is an enzyme to take down histamine, and then people's gallbladders are not working.
They are, in fact, mostly. It's a rare thing for someone's gallbladder not to be working in general. It does happen. But making a sweeping generalization that everyone that eats a carnivore diet has a faulty gallbladder, no. Just nonsense, not underpinned by any kind of science or evidence of any kind.
And very well. So they're just not digesting properly.
I really am, and so are most people on a carnivore diet, digesting perfectly well everything that's being eaten mostly, very little waste.
So I'm going to have you take a look at this again.
We've already seen it, Stephanie.
And understand the importance that...
We understand tight gap junctions is important in the epithelial cells that line your colon. Yes. How do we do that? Well, we eat a diet that's species appropriate and species specific. We change across to that diet if we're not already there, slowly, glacially, over 6 to 8 weeks. We don't change our diet suddenly. Jobs are good in. What is next?
If you're eating poor quality meat, like it's not.
What is that?
Not like, oh, well, I can't afford grass-fed
Like.
ribeye, so I'm going to go for the, soy and corn-fed feedlot ribeye. If you're
still much better than eating the corn, soy, and that directly yourself. Much better.
your histamine is that bad and you do carnivore trying to do it for the long term.
If your histamine intolerance is bad, you need to speak to somebody competent to help you through that and to get you back on track with your health. And that is not Stephanie Person. I'm available for consultancies. You can find the link underneath every single one of my videos on my channel. It's the bit.ly link. Click on that and there's a link off page there to consultancies via Patreon membership. Get into it. Come and talk to someone that knows what they're talking about, someone with an actual background in the field, somebody who understands what is going on and how to help you with it.
And your body's rejecting all of the toxins on this non-grass-fed meat.
Oh, rubbish, Stephanie. Just nonsense, love. Just absolute garbage.
You can get sick.
You're already sick if you have a histamine intolerance issue.
And I mean very sick.
That's right. You're already ill and you need help from someone who knows what they are talking about.
I'm very constipated. Or
no, not necessarily.
have very loose stool.
Maybe, but not necessarily.
And all of a sudden, your allergies tend to go berserker bananas.
That can happen if you have a histamine imbalance issue in your body, yes.
Now, the goal is to use carnivore for the short term.
No, it isn't. False again.
To seal up that wall.
Do you not see how stupid what you've just said is? You're saying the problem is leaky gut, which is possibly correct in many cases. A carnivore diet will help you seal that up, yes. So why in the purple fuck would you do that short term? You silly girl.
And give your body a break from the plants.
That's right, permanently.
Now, I just did a video like 2 videos ago, like breaking down what's in all the plants, like salicylates and oxalates and goitrogens and nightshades and lectins, saponins.
The stuff that caused the leaky gut in the first place, yep.
Tannins, gluten.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Lectin. Yes.
And when you have a bad gut wall because you were not breastfed or you
No, not necessarily.
were not vaginally birthed or
Not necessarily.
you were given pharmacological
Right,
interventions
none of those are to do with carnivore diet, good.
when you were young, then you might already have sort of a weak gut wall.
Yes, you might, but that's nothing to do with the carnivore diet. Remember this video is about the carnivore diet and how it's not safe long term? Apparently. We're still waiting. Wow.
And then you do carnivore, and then in the beginning, the body's like, oh, great, because I was reacting to all these plants. But now you're eating a bunch of meat.
Yes, that's what the carnivore diet is, and it's not a bunch of meat. It's an appropriate amount of meat and fat.
You don't have enough stomach acid.
Nonsense. Absolute fucking garbage. The thing that reduces a person's ability to produce sufficient stomach acid, Stephanie, is eating a plant-based diet. For goodness sake.
Hydrochloric acid, you don't have enough protease. Your biliary.
Oh, right, so eating a diet which is rich in protein will leave you to not have enough protease, is it? Wow. Fuck me, seriously?
Duct system's not working properly. Your pancreas isn't working
Oh,
properly.
right, so now you know everything that's going on in everybody's body, do you, Stephanie, when you don't even know what the hell histamine is? Great.
Properly. Your intestines aren't too happy because, of course, you're not digesting the meat very well.
Well, in fact, we are at large.
And so how do you know all of this stuff is going on? Because you'll have diarrhea or you'll have...
No, diarrhea can be caused by thousands of different things, Stephanie.
Diarrhea or constipation on carnivore.
Which? Because thousands of things can cause both diarrhea and constipation. Many of those things have nothing whatever to do with leaky gut or histamine. And you don't even know what constipation is. Wow.
Or you try to up the fat because everybody's like, oh, eat the fat, and you can't digest the fat. You feel sick. Jump off.
No. Come and get some advice from someone who knows how to give you the right advice, because that's not it.
Like, don't keep forcing yourself to do something that's going to continue creating harm.
It's not creating harm, Stephanie. The harm has already been done. Now we need to ameliorate the harm by doing the things that you need to do that will actually ameliorate the harm. And changing your diet again is not it.
Affected gallbladder.
What qualifies you to talk to anybody about the gallbladder, Stephanie, and its functioning? What?
Or an infection in your pancreas.
Which? So we all just wildly speculate about the cause of someone's gastric upset. It's this or it's that. Wow.
Because if your liver is not functioning properly.
Now we're on the liver. Make your mind up. What do you want to talk about? Because it's still not the carnivore diet that you're talking about here, is it? No.
And then you're dehydrated in the kidneys, and you got a lot of protein waste products trying to go through the kidney.
Such as? What protein waste products?
Slowing down the gallbladder and often your pancreas. So people are having this pain on this side, and they don't realize.
Hang on, I thought pain on that side was to do with constipation solely, because that's the only thing you said. If you've got pain on that side, you're constipated. Wow. Wow.
And they're like, oh, it's my liver. I'm like, maybe your pancreas.
Yeah, maybe, and maybe fucking not.
Maybe pancreatitis.
Maybe not too. Very likely not. It's quite rare to get pancreatitis. And pancreatitis is almost invariably caused by alcoholism.
Might be your gallbladder.
It might not be too, remember? That's the great thing about might be.
And if it's one of these things, stop eating all that meat.
What if it's not, and how do we know? How do we know, Stephanie? Well, because they won't know from consulting with you, will they? You're not qualified.
The best thing is to do a ketogenic version because it's going to be
False. False again.
To low protein.
That's a bad idea. Very, very bad idea indeed.
If you're a woman eating a pound of beef a day, you're eating too much protein.
Possibly. It depends on your body mass, your lean body mass, Stephanie. Some woman might well be of a body mass, a lean body mass, a stature, a muscularity that would indicate the intake of that much protein. Again, with the sweeping statements that are false.
Unless you're 6 feet tall.
Hang on. What if you're 6 feet tall and very, very slender? Still no. You really have no idea at all what you're talking about, Stephanie. This really has to stop. Yesterday. What are you doing?
And men, if you're eating too, you're eating too much protein.
Not necessarily. Same arguments.
And people are like, but what am I going to do? I'm really hungry. I'm like, up the fat. If you cannot up the fat because you have that pain, stop and start to freaking work on your organs.
How, Stephanie?
Massages.
Oh my God, no. Absolutely not. No.
Maybe supplemental intervention.
Maybe not too.
Definitely stay hydrated.
Well, what does that mean exactly?
You could do distilled water for a couple weeks.
No! Absolutely not.
Really sort of clean out byproducts
No.
out of your kidneys because distilled water doesn't have anything in it.
Yes, it does.
You can add some Himalayan salt to it, Himalayan Celtic salt to it.
Well, make your mind up which and why.
If you're looking for some minerals. But
how do you know you're looking for some minerals, Stephanie? How would I know? Let's say I don't know anything and I'm looking to you to give me advice, Stephanie. How do I know I'm looking for minerals? If I've got 3 brain cells, I'm not looking to you for advice, but
low carb people do take minerals anyway. Take a look at
we've seen this already, remember?
That most people on this planet who are not hunter-gatherers have the thumbs down leaky gut. That's the reason why we can't.
Most people don't have a leaky gut. Some do.
Fast. Because we develop a blood sugar instability because we're having so much inflammation in our gut.
No. Fuck. Wow. Incredible.
And we're not making ketones because our blood sugar is running high, or our ketones become unviable. We're not using ketones, or not making enough, or we're making too much. So I want to go into some concepts that you guys don't think about when you're doing.
Oh, please get into some concepts. Wow.
Diet. Is your body making enough lipase?
How would we know, Stephanie?
Right? So lipase is going to break down fats and oils.
Yes, but how do we know we're making enough or not?
And glycerol. And lipase is produced.
No, lipase does not break down glycerol.
Pancreas and in your small intestine. So if your gallbladder's not working pretty well, often
again, how would we know that?
Pancreas is not really making enough of these digestive enzymes, and then you're forcing down the fat and forcing down the protein. So protease, this breaks down proteins into smaller peptides and, of course, amino acids, as you guys know, so the body can uptake it and use it for like muscle or structure, because we're made out
for like muscle or structure.
Of amino acids everywhere. And
so why should we then limit the amount of protein that we're taking in unnaturally to a level that's vastly too low, as per what you suggest, Stephanie, on several other videos? How is that indicated in any way, shape, or form?
Also, we've got pepsin, which is also breaking down protein, and that's produced in the stomach, as well as trypsin, and it's called chymotrypsin. These are things that help break it down. But if your stomach acids are low because you're a stress monger, because you're a coffee drinker, because you were drinking alcohol often when you were younger, and
okay, well, some of those things can have an effect on your stomach acidity. What has that got to do with whether or not the carnivore diet is good for you long term? Still fucking nothing.
You've taken pharmacological intervention.
Nothing to do with carnivore, still.
Like SSRIs and proton pump inhibitors and alprazolam and all this kind of stuff. You've lowered your stomach acid to a very low level, and poof, the wall opens up, and we start to develop autoimmunity. So that can include thyroid issues, arthritis issues, fibromyalgia is a huge one. You guys aren't digesting your iron very well. So people are like, I don't
Yes, I am. Thanks.
understand. I've been doing carnivore and I don't know. My iron is still low, or it's too high, because you guys don't realize.
No, my iron is perfect. It's neither too low nor too high. Thanks.
Don't overwhelm your gut with.
My gut is not overwhelmed. Thanks.
Freaking protein.
Oh, God, you're so destitute of any clue or professional standard or understanding of anything that you're talking about whatsoever here, Stephanie. You are just flailing in the wind and making noise. You are completely out of your depth. You have entirely lost a grasp on your place in the universe and the utility of what it was you used to be doing. You have somehow developed ideas of grandiosity well above your station of competence, and you are saying stupid, dangerous, nonsensical shit in your videos. It has to stop. I've had enough. I can't deal with this anymore. There's still half of this left. I suspect it gets worse rather than better, and I'm going to save myself the aggravation, and the rest of you as well. Thank you for sitting through another 45 minutes of this. Join me next time when someone else will be wrong on the interwebs, because it does not look like stopping anytime soon, does it? No. Enjoy some Vivaldi. 2, 3, 4.